I really like multiplayer games.
If you got caught in a hell bomb, I wouldn't do anything about it.
I'm going to grab my shit.
If you were at your lowest moment, I wouldn't help.
Yeah.
Being able to connect with people across the world and create genuine connections is one of the few good things to come from the internet. And being able to participate in the shared hobby of gaming with some of my favorite people is one of the greatest things ever. Ever since the 1990s, multiplayer has been a staple of video games. The ability to interact and play your favorite games with people all over the planet is a feature that will almost certainly never go away. At least, not until the heat death of the universe. While most multiplayer games have balanced teams, 4v4, 8v8, 12v12, 50v50, or 64v64, often pitting up similarly skilled players against each other, there is a genre of multiplayer game that shakes it up. Instead of balanced teams, this genre usually has intentionally designed teams to have distinct gameplay from the others. This is called asymmetrical multiplayer, and it's one of my favorite genres of all time. Asymmetrical multiplayer, put simply, is where one or more players have an advantage or significant gameplay difference from the rest. Sometimes it's a 1v4 or a team of 2v10, or sometimes the asymmetrical aspect can come not from the number of players on any team, but instead how the team plays, what equipment they have access to, that sort of stuff. This style of game design can actually be traced all the way back to 1982 with an Atari game called Nautilus, a split-screen game, in fact possibly one of the first split-screen games, where one player plays as a submarine whose goal is to destroy underwater structures and collect their cores. Meanwhile, a player in a ship on the surface attempts to locate and destroy the submarine by dropping depth charges. Now, coverage is sporadic for the next 17 years, but what I believe to be the first modern asymmetrical multiplayer game was Aliens vs. Predator, released in 1999 and then re-released in 2010 as Aliens vs. Predator 2000, with better performance on modern computers and containing all of its expansion content. This is the version that I'll be talking about. AVP 2K features 3 unique campaigns for each of its factions, though none of them are that great. What's important here is its multiplayer.
It literally plays like if somebody tried to make a Quake mod for Aliens vs. Predator. Or like made an Alien vs. Predator mod for Quake, sorry.
You're good. I'm still looking at it.
If I'm being honest, AVP 2K's character controller, regardless of species, handles like I'm playing a Quake mod. Even the Marine sounds like a default Quake guy when jumping.
Oh. What was that Quake-ass fucking, like, pain sound effect? What?
The game runs on the Azura engine, which as far as I can tell has no connection to the Quake engine, though I wouldn't be surprised to find out that its existence is traced to some Quake code. Lord knows it's been used for greater games. The multiplayer community for this game is small, consisting of pretty much just one Discord server, which hosts games once in a blue moon. The multiplayer feels like I've fallen into an AVP-themed Quake lobby, and as much as I like arena shooters, the whole 3-species system doesn't blend well into that formula. While it was fun, it devolved into Marines hurling grenades at each other with the occasional Predator chiming in to wipe the floor with us. Xenomorphs add some variety as melee-only enemies, but with the movement system feeling a lot like Quake, it means that Xenomorphs are practically trimping across the map.
Oh, it's a fucking Xenomorph!
It's chaotic and fun to an extent, but overall not what I'm personally looking for with an asymmetrical multiplayer game. If you do want to relive some glory days with the game, the Discord community is a great place to organize a game or two, but other than that, its successor is significantly more fun to play when it comes to tri-faction gameplay. Let's skip in time ahead a bit, to 2010. Aliens vs. Predator was met with very mixed reactions on launch, and while it is a mediocre at best single-player game, its multiplayer is some of the best I've ever experienced. Playing AVP 2010 with friends is honestly the best this game has to offer, since its multiplayer community is deader than AVP 2K's. I've had 0 experiences with matches against any sort of randoms, so this is all going to be super biased towards my personal experiences playing in a group chat with friends. Unlike AVP 2K, the three factions have all seemingly more distinct gameplay differences. While they retain most of their playstyle from 2K, such as invisibility, vision modes, and crawling on walls, the gameplay has slowed down a lot. It's more controlled. The gameplay is almost tactical now rather than relying on breakneck fast instinct. Although, that isn't to say that AVP 2010 isn't fast-paced.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?
The Marines are by far the weakest faction in terms of ability. The gameplay is mostly shooting at shadows in the dark and occasionally picking up a better gun. Because of this, the Marines rely primarily on teamwork to survive, with a single Marine being extremely vulnerable to instant kill attacks from both the Yautja and Xenomorphs. Marines either work together or die alone. Fuck, wait, that's the GTFO thing. As a Marine, range is your friend. The moment a Xenomorph gets close, your chances of survival decrease drastically. Thankfully, you do have some recourse for when some alien son of a bitch gets up in your face and tries to rip your head off. I believe each faction has this mechanic, but the Marine gets the most use out of it in my experience. You can block light attacks, however you cannot block heavy attacks. Blocking a light attack allows you a small window where you can follow it up with a light attack and parry an enemy, stunning them momentarily. As a Marine, this means that you can get a few shots in while they're on a back foot, and force them to either commit to the fight or run away.
Hey, nice block, Tristan! Did that stop the fucking bullets?
Shut up! Come on, man!
What do you mean?
This is especially dangerous for a Predator, as they don't have nearly the amount of mobility that a Xenomorph does. The parry ability really levels the playing field a bit, and I think it is the keystone mechanic holding this game together. While all of the factions play differently, none feels like they have an inherent advantage over the others. The time to kill is quite fast, and it all feels relatively balanced in the long run. Now, other than that, the Marines really don't have much going for them overall. You point and shoot. You're the underdogs, the prey, the incubators. But, something, indomitable human spirit. The Xenomorphs rely on either swarm tactics, stealth, or a combination of both. Your main gimmick is the ability to climb on any surface, which is disorienting at first, but you quickly get used to it. As a Xenomorph, you are a threat to anything alive. Hit-and-run tactics are your friend, keeping Marines distracted while your hive mates sneak up on them or lying in wait to pick off the stragglers. The aliens are the faction with the fastest gameplay, and it's personally my favorite. Xenomorphs are often portrayed in various ways depending on the media they are in, either cannon fodder enemies or relentless killing machines.
Oh, you did not just fucking see me.
And here, you get to be both. Capable of taking out a fully beefed up Yautja or dying en masse to a squad of Marines, it's a good time regardless. The aliens play a pivotal piece in this game. Being by far the most aggressive faction, they put the Marines on a back foot, which can let a Predator player sneak into the battle while the Marines have their focus elsewhere. The balance of this game is like an ecosystem. You take one faction out and the whole thing would just fall apart. And I think that the aliens are the most important part of this ecosystem. It's so enticing to just want to play a Predator or a Marine, since those choices on a surface level are so much more interesting due to their level of power. But come on, we have hunting grounds for that. And the diversity added by the Xenomorphs is what makes this game one of the best asymmetrical multiplayer games of all time. Well, at least in my opinion. As a Predator, you have the advantage on both factions. You can hide up and away from the Marines and Xenomorphs alike and use invisibility to close the distance, only being disturbed if you attack or step in water. While you may theoretically be the apex predator in this game, you are far from a bullet sponge. Choosing to engage in melee means waiting for the right moment to take your trophy. Much like the Marines, the Predator relies on pickups for their primary playstyle. There are tools scattered around each map that you can pick up and utilize to your advantage. In fact, I think these tools definitely play a role in more aggressive play, but I'm no Predator main. One of my favorite tools is the proximity mine. Placing it on high traffic areas or nearby powerful Marine pickups allows for you to get control of the battlefield without ever needing to reveal yourself. But each gadget is really fun to use. I mean, you get to be a predator for God's sake, what's not to love? Well, the spear. That's not to love. I fucking hate that spear, but I'll be the first to admit that I have a skill issue with it. Now, normally I like to start at the beginning with this sort of thing, but honestly, with the roots of this topic being firmly in an Atari game, it's not like I could make a whole video about that. And I don't really have much to say about AVP 2K, since I don't think the asymmetrical aspect of that game is really that good. So instead, I jumped to AVP 2010. Years after asymmetric multiplayer was already pretty well defined, but it felt right to kick this series off with the franchise that basically defined the modern idea of an asymmetrical multiplayer game. Despite all of its flaws and mediocrity, AVP 2010 is probably one of my favorite asymmetrical multiplayer games. Actually, it's probably one of the first asymmetrical multiplayer games I ever found out about, watching Let's Plays on my shitty hand-me-down phone at 14 years old. And to be honest, the game hasn't disappointed me yet. The story modes can be hit or miss. The Marine campaign has one notable set piece in a club, and the Predator story is forgettable. But by far, the Alien campaign is one of the most unique and interesting things to come from anything related to Alien or its Predator crossover. Well, maybe aside from Isolation, that game is fucking incredible. I honestly wouldn't recommend getting this game unless you have at least 7 friends ready to spend a couple of bucks when it's on sale. I would recommend between 2 to 4 players on Humans and Aliens, and 1 to 2 players on Predators for the best experience, though really you can scale it up depending on how many people you can get to play with you. It is unfortunate that this game is effectively dead, but asymmetrical multiplayer games never last. It's kind of a double-edged sword for the genre. On one hand, some of the most interesting multiplayer gameplay in the industry comes from the genre, but on the other, the asymmetric design means that it's usually hard to keep people around without a constant drip feed of content. The only long-standing game in the genre currently is Dead by Daylight, and while I will talk about it at length, I think it's because it's safe. Sure, it's got a lot of risky design, but it's nowhere near as complex and interesting as something like Natural Selection 2, Splinter Cell Blacklist, or Arkham Origins. Hell, even a Roblox game manages to somehow take Dead by Daylight's basic gameplay premise and iterate positively upon it. Although, on second thought, maybe it is the fact that Dead by Daylight isn't inherently tied to an existing single-player game that allows it to survive for so long. As someone who dearly loves this genre with all my heart, it's very difficult to watch all these games wither and die, but coming to terms with the fact that none of these games last is just a natural part of life for me at this point. The real kicker is when the games rely on servers that get shut down, like the Spies vs. Mercs game mode in Splinter Cell. But at the end of the day, when AVP's competition is something far more casual like Call of Duty, it's hard to be in denial about why asymmetrical multiplayer is in this state. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more videos on games with asymmetrical multiplayer. Oh, and subscribe to my Patreon, it's back up. Every little bit helps right now. Thanks.